Okay, should be streaming on YouTube. If you're just tuning in, going to actually start the show in about 9 minutes, so you might want to fast forward if you're watching an archive version. If you're watching live, hey, guess what? You can't fast forward. Huh. And on YouTube, I hope you're going to have video tonight. You should have video tonight. William, good evening. Can you hear me, sir?
Hello.
Hey, William.
Hello, my friend.
Yeah, I'm just getting my guests here, folks. Sharon, can you hear me?
I can indeed.
Oh, yeah, you sound good. William, you might want to put the microphone a wee bit closer to your mouth, sir.
Is that any good?
Yeah, sounding good. Sounding very good. Thank you. Okay. Just bear with me. Bear with me, folks. About 7 minutes. I'm going to leave you just where you are. And, yeah, let's have a good show.
Hi, Sharon.
Hello.
Hello.
Five, 6 minutes, folks. Yeah. I'll tell you what, actually, just I wrote a new guide for Discord. I'll pin it in the comments so that people can see that if they want to know how to call into the show. Taking comments, taking comments throughout the show. Taking calls from about half past the hour, yeah, about 7:30, folks. If you want to call in and speak to Sharon and William. Do us a favour, share this thing. I think I should too. 3 minutes, people. Yeah. Probably a minute late. Probably. Let's face it. I do apologise for this music. Yeah, 1 minute, people. 1 minute. Blimey, don't know what happened there. That's enough of that. Hey folks! Good evening, good people. Welcome to the Daily Brexit. Holding democracy to account, fighting for self-determination and exposing plutocracy. I'm Olly Connelly. Thanks for turning up. And now, Melanie Shaw. Why is this journalist a political prisoner? What does it tell us about the UK? Two figures who have closely followed her case, Sharon Goddard and William Prentice, are with me now. Plus, allegations that Anna Soubry MP has set up James Goddard, Yellow Vests UK, and the Leave community. You will not be hearing about this on the BBC. Taking your calls on Discord on gov.ly/rant from the bottom of the hour, and we'll see you in the comments. Thank you for supporting free speech. PayPal.me/Brexit. Please share the show, like the thing, get involved. Cheers. Let people know that we are talking, we are thinking, we are watching, we are active. Okay, roll call, please. Sharon Goddard, are you there?
I am indeed.
Lovely. And you, William Prentice?
I am, sir, yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. I'm going to start with a bit of a summary of what's going on in the world of fake stream right now. And news this evening, Heathrow Airport drone chaos. Drone sighting sparks runway closure and flight backlog. According to the Express, I don't know what the latest situation is there, but that was about 10 minutes ago. And that's been going on for an hour or so. So more big delays. It just goes to show how easy it is to hold this country to ransom. But anyway, that's what's going on there. But more importantly, really, according to the Builder graph, and no surprise, we've been expecting it for years, frankly, the government's Brexit defeat. MPs vote for amendment that seeks to stop no deal as Tory rebels join with Labour. So let's have a look at this, because this is really, really just fresh in now. Yes, I am ad blocking Builder graph. Thank you. The Brexit secretary has urged MPs to come up with solutions rather than just highlighting shortcomings of Theresa May's deal ahead of a crunch vote in the Commons, they're saying. So they are not in tally with their headline there that says the government has been defeated in this crunch finance bill. So what this is this is parliamentarian rebels who do not want Brexit, no deal. They do not want Brexit at all. They want us to continue to be joined at the hip with this EU regime. And they are doing rather similarly to what the Congress is doing in the United States, holding the presidency to ransom over the wall with their government shut down. This is a similar deal. They seem to have latched onto this idea. Some of these anti-democrats who do not want Brexit have latched onto the idea that they can have funding withheld on any preparations for no deal. And I imagine that more news will be coming in as, for example, they update their story there and in other places. So I will come back to that story as and when we get some updates. But the bottom line is that the government, it would appear, has been defeated on an amendment which allows parliamentarians to hold the Brexit no deal that they themselves set in motion about, 6 months ago now or so, or 8 months ago. It looks as though they are backtracking on that and that they are doing everything that they can to prevent a no deal. No surprise at all. But it just really brings us to the story of the week, which is of the fact that we've had this fiasco with Anna Soubry being called a Nazi or what have you. I think more correctly a fascist, personally, but the EU, we know, was born of a Nazi ideology, and so not entirely inaccurate anyway. And full marks, frankly, in my opinion, to Jamie Goddard and the Yellow Vests UK for speaking up for democracy and fighting for democracy, and basically highlighting that these people in Parliament are not on the side of the people that voted for them. Yeah, 408 out of 650 constituencies voted to leave. Where is the representation in Parliament? And what we have seen today materialize is some footage of Anna Soubry walking with some of her minders, some of her security detail, and it would appear that there is an exchange, an interaction between one of the yellow vests, in inverted commas, and the security detail there. In other words, the yellow vests, it would appear, have been infiltrated. And it begs the question, has Goddard and co and by the way, my guest tonight, Sharon Goddard, is no relation. We'll come on to that. We'll be talking to Sharon in a second. But have they been infiltrated, and are they basically gunning to stop protests outside of Westminster as we are due to leave on the 29th of March? Let's have a look at this footage, which shows this guy in Speaker's Corner. Let me see if I can get some volume on this. I don't know if there is any volume on this footage. And then I'll cue it up properly. Please excuse me. Live show and all that. Right, okay, so I don't know if there is any audio, but we can at least...
Yeah, you're connected to the KKK.
So apparently he was in Speaker's Corner, for example, drumming up a lot of problems there. This guy... The concern being that we might lose our right to free speech at Speaker's Corner. I don't know whether that's something, but now also walking with Anna Soubry here, he is getting in with the yellow vests. Certainly. Now he may be, he is very welcome to come on the show and have a chat. Please do. But look at this here. Look at this footage coming up, where he puts something inside Anna Soubry's security. Just there. Now that's Anna Soubry's security guy in the middle of the picture, and this bloke who potentially is an infiltrator into the yellow vest is putting something into his jacket right now, right there. Look at that. Or into his pocket, possibly. Now, you would expect, would you not, the security detail, if he's a security guy and somebody does that, and you're protecting a public figure, that there would be some kind of a reaction. Look at his face. There's no reaction. He doesn't even look at the guy. He must know that that guy is putting something in his pocket or touching him or something like that. Look at that. He looks at him briefly. Look at the guy's hand there, the guy that potentially is this infiltrator. And now he comes back to the front, and that's Anna Soubry behind. The question being, does Anna Soubry know about this? Is this some kind of another false flag? This whole, is he the one that was suggesting that everybody call Anna Soubry a Nazi? I don't know. Well, my point here, because there's a lot of questions. We can't be sure. We can't be sure exactly what's happened here, but that is very peculiar footage, and it does suggest that there's more to this story than we had previously been led to believe. So anyway, I don't know. We'll see about that. That is the Facebook and Twitter are aflutter with what's going on with all of that, and I'll keep you informed as best I can. Anyway, and indeed, this is very, very big. This story that's coming in now that the government has been defeated. MPs vote for amendment that seeks to stop no deal as Tory rebels join with Labour. Sharon Goddard, do you have any comment particularly on what you've seen this week? Do you think that it is that people are going too far, that we should be, if you like, a lot quieter in our dissent? Or do you think that it is understandable that people are feeling that they aren't being represented by the likes of Soubry, whose constituents voted, about 70% of Broxtowe voted to leave that went to the ballot? But I don't know. You tell me. What are your thoughts on what's going on?
Well, the 17.4 million of the Democratic vote that voted to leave. I think that more of these people should actually be out on the streets with their yellow vests and actually protesting, because there's all sorts of dodgy deals going on behind the scenes and things like that that's happening. And I just think that they're going to and unless people actually get on the street and start demonstrating, their rights as to vote, the government, they work for us because we have voted them now like that.
Well, we do have some dreadful audio here. We do have some dreadful audio. It's not your fault. It's not your fault, Sharon. It's I've been trying to increase the upload and the download speed here. I don't know if you know anything about bandwidth capacities and what have you. I've got 10 meg going up, 50 coming down, and I'm at the moment sorting it out so that I'll have twice the upload going up, which will help things a lot better. But because I've got these problems, I'm just going to get rid of a load of tabs, which will help to prioritize what is important, which is that my guests are heard. So let me just get rid of about 20 tabs in one browser, and there we go. Okay, but YouTube, you should have video tonight, as well as on YouTube, as well as on Facebook. Sorry, Sharon. Sorry, please start that again, my dear. I do apologize. It should be a little bit better now.
I think that the 17.4 million of the democratic vote that actually voted to leave the EU, I believe that more of these people should actually be out on the streets with their yellow vest, protesting this, because I believe that, the government are there, they're in power there because, people have voted them there. It is a democratic vote that has voted them there, so that's why they are there. They are doing a job. They're serving the public. They're serving the public that, that the people pay for, So people need to think wisely, who they're going to be voting for next. Because if they don't pull this, this vote through and we actually leave the EU without any ties, without any commitments and things like that, which I think they're going to tuck us up in anyway. I don't believe that we will fully leave the EU at all. But that's just my feeling about what's going on, and who's behind all this, and who's representing us as a country. To be quite honest with you,
would you have anything to add to that, William?
Only really that was a good point there, Sharon. Well, you are right that them in Parliament are public servants. They have to do what the public says. And as far as the likes of Anna Soubry having priority in relation to somebody making a comment to her, what about when she actually said Donald Trump should be executed? Why isn't she held to account for that?
Yeah. She also called Brexiteers morons and thugs. She and Owen, what's his name, that Guardian bloke, have constantly referred to Brexiteers as right-wing extremists. Even Prime Minister Cameron called us fruitcakes, didn't he? It really does beg a belief. It does appear to be a double standard. Sharon?
Hello. Yeah, I believe it's a double standard. It's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, really. And it's because the people that have voted to leave, they're trying to push forward to leave the EU, and the ones that don't really want to leave, they're they're name calling as well, because
they're losing their argument.
Yeah, it's just absolutely pathetic, to be quite honest with you. But they need to push forward. We need to leave with no strings, no holds. We need to take back what's ours.
Totally agree.
We need to mull through it. To be quite honest with you.
Would you be concerned at the prospect? Would you be concerned to leave without a so-called deal?
No, I wouldn't.
No. Why not?
Certainly.
No, Um, to be quite honest with you, there's lots of countries out there that want to trade with us. We can get, free trade movements and things like that with other countries. We probably have a bigger buying power, to ship goods in. France, Germany, uh, you know, uh, more of the bigger populated European countries, they need to be very careful because, 65% of their car manufacturing trade actually comes from, us buying it. So, that would leave a lot of people really out of work.
It is the
So,
bottom line, isn't it? We have a trade deficit with the EU. In other words, they rely on our trade more than we rely on theirs. I mean, that's the bottom line. All that Theresa May needed to do at the very beginning of these talks is to say, we must have parallel talks. You will discuss the trade as well as the divorce settlement in parallel. Or it's no deal. And I would have thought they wouldn't have any choice, William, no?
No. First of all, I was never married to the EU, and none of us were. The biggest majority of the people were never asked if we want to join it. We were told we're going to join it. We are a sixth richest country on the planet. We can fare better by ourselves. We can fish our own waters, put our own orders and laws that have been working for hundreds of years and will continue to work for the people of the country. And also the laws in this country are for the guests that come here and do something wrong. They have to pay for that penalty. But we have a far better chance of a deal with China, Japan, Hong Kong, all over the world, Australia and America, better with no deal than we are now. We said, no deal, get out. We want to rule our own country with our rules, and that is it. That's what they're scared of, because the EU cons the government by saying, we'll give you billions, when it's our money anyway. It's our money anyway they're giving us back.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just want to draw people's attention to the kind of language that we have had from Anna Soubry in this clip here. So let's see if you can see this and hear this. Just 1 second.
These people are members of, a lot of them, the English Defence League. They support people like the so-called Tommy Robinson man. These are fascists and...
Now, hold on a sec. I do apologise, people. Okay, all right. I'm a bit rusty, aren't I? I'm a bit rusty. Okay, all right. Let's see if we can increase the volume here. Second show back, folks. Right, that's better.
This is not the
This is Anna Soubry, yeah. This is Anna Soubry talking about Brexiteers.
This is seriously worrying. These people are members of, a lot of them, the English Defence League. They support people like the so-called Tommy Robinson man.
Now, hold on a second. How many of those folks out there are members of the EDL, yeah? How many of the folks watching this show are members of the EDL? It's just absolutely ridiculous. Sharon, William, are you members of the EDL?
No.
I've never been a member of the EDL.
She talks as though Brexiteers are all members of the EDL or all Tommy Robinson supporters or what have you. I have to say, I think Tommy Robinson says a lot of very, very sensible things. But on the other hand, that is not the issue. We're talking about Brexit here. But she carries on.
They support people like the so-called Tommy Robinson man. These are fascists, and overwhelmingly, it seems as well, many of them are racists. They have no regard for law at all. And I'm afraid the truth is Brexit has unleashed these people. This is Britain now.
1 sec, William.
This is not the Britain I know and love, and these people do not represent our country, and they need sorting out.
The fact is that she's not representing her constituents. Let's just take a few comments and then we'll get into the thrust of today's show. Okay, all right. Let's take a few comments. Gordon Richards, House of Commons Code of Conduct. Anna Soubry constituency voted leave. And in the Code of Conduct, Clause 6, members have a general duty to act in the interests of the nation as a whole and a special duty to their constituents. So if you're watching, Anna, and I'm sure some of your trolls are, you might want to take notice of that. Kevin Burke says, we voted to back our sovereignty, to take back control. Kerry J. Swan, she's angry because she's embarrassed, been shown up, and I can't repeat the last word. Kerry, you really are a one. Marianne Walters says, Lib Lab Con are following the Coudenhove-Kalergi plan, as are the other EU governments. They are against us. And you know what? There was footage about a week or 10 days ago of Juncker actually praising Count Coudenhove-Kalergi and saying how much he admired that man whose mission it was on a cultural genocide of Europe. Look it up, people. Look it up. Absolutely beggars belief. This just incredible. Do you guys know anything about Coudenhove-Kalergi?
Wasn't he something to do years and years ago with the SS in Germany?
Well, yeah, basically that kind of thing. I mean, a mission to overrun Europe with uncontrolled migration. Uncontrolled. This is not against migration, yeah. Uncontrolled, i.e. chaotic, with a view to culling European cultures and basically homogenizing all of us. I wonder what that is, if it is not racist. Paul Hart, we marched with the Cameroons. Yeah, that's right. True. It was incredible. The yellow vests the other day in London were having their protest, and there was another protest simultaneously by Cameroon. I don't know whether you call them Cameroonians or what have you, but people from Cameroon or of Cameroon heritage who were marching against the genocide. I'm sorry? Go on, William.
Cameroonians.
And they were marching against atrocities going on in their country. And when they met together, instead of there being any friction or what have you, which, would the kind of thing that the likes of Soubry would suggest that would be the case from that language, they started hugging each other and they marched in unison. And the Cameroonians said that they were in absolute agreement for Brexit, and it was actually a very, very beautiful moment at the weekend. And despite all the problems that we see, thank goodness people are speaking out at last. Dave Fergie, hello Dave, God bless you, mate. Soubry, actions lead to consequences. Absolutely. Katmia's Fallon. What a shame. She looks at all people that wanted to leave as the same, like the people of the UK didn't have our own brains. And Helen Grieg, they have a Kalergi medal. Do they? Oh, blimey. Okay. All right.
What has race got to do with it?
Well,
in my opinion,
it does actually have something to do with it. For me, in as much as I personally would like to see our race, or rather our culture, protected, but equally I'd like to see other cultures protected as well.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I see your point. Yeah, but what I was getting at is that sour grapes, Sowerby saying we're racist and all. We don't care what colour, creed, or where you come from. If you're by our side, come in and join us. Tommy Robertson has got nothing to do with it.
That's right.
Can I just interrupt?
Please, Sharon.
I know quite a few of the Muslim population actually voted to leave themselves.
There you go.
I know this firsthand because my husband, who I'm separated from, they actually voted to leave, and he's Muslim.
Right.
So, so it's not a race thing. It's not a race thing. What they've done is they've made it about race because they want to separate and divide. If they
divide and rule,
and divide, and then bring Tommy Robinson fans into it as a race propaganda, That's where they're going to, separate and divide
That's right.
the majority vote, because they're playing it very tactically and very clever, to be quite honest with you. But there was a lot of the Muslim population that actually voted to leave themselves.
And a lot of Muslims work every day in this country and all, so they've got the right to say that.
Okay, all right. Gonna move on to our theme for the evening. And as tends to be the case with things we discuss on this show, again, it's something that's never discussed on the mainstream media, that of Melanie Shaw. And perhaps you could kick us off, Sharon, by explaining why this is an issue that people need to know about, the case of Melanie Shaw, who I know you've been supporting, both of you.
Yes, I've been doing research and, looking into this case for quite a while now. Melanie Shaw was a child abuse victim, actually a survivor. She's a child abuse survivor of the Beechwood Children's Care Home in Nottinghamshire, one of 22 care homes that have been under investigation for allegations into, child abuse.
That's just in one area as well, isn't it? One of 22 care homes in a small area, no?
A very small area, to be quite honest with you. It's also a part of...
Carry on, but is this Nottinghamshire way?
Yes, it is. Yes, it's all within the
catchment.
Yeah, the catchment of Nottinghamshire. 22 homes have been under investigation.
22 homes in just one small area of the UK. Carry on, please.
Right. Okay. So, Melanie, 2011, 2012, she was the whistleblower of the Beechwood Care Home, and that led into Operation Daybreak. There's lots of videos that Melanie has done online. If people just type in her name, there's lots there on YouTube, and really, really look at what she's saying in some of the videos. She's given lots of information. Beechwood closed down in 2006. They've built upon that now, houses. They've redeveloped the land, etc.
Why?
Hard evidence.
Well, Melanie said that there was Mark Lucia Griffiths. I believe that he was buried there, and Norman Norton, she said, was also buried there.
Who are these people? They're two victims, or?
They are two victims that have been buried within the grounds of Beechwood.
By the gardener?
I don't believe it was the gardener. The gardener was threatened in one of Melanie's videos that she's done. She actually says it was the gardener that stopped her from actually getting raped and possibly murdered that day, and he caught the perpetrator in his in his actions, and she managed to get away. And it was the gardener, I think his name was Bob or Bill. He's passed away now, but
now
he was given a hard time and had to leave the Beechwood care home as the gardener.
Sorry about that, Sharon. I got it wrong, love.
No, that's
Sorry.
okay.
There was a big problem in yet another care home, except actually 22, but Beechwood was one of them, and that's the one where Melanie was. Now, when she started exposing what had happened to her and other victims, or other children in those homes, as I understand it, her evidence was suppressed, and now she is actually in prison with no contact with the outside world. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. The first time Melanie went to prison, it was over something very minor, very, very minor. Melanie had got an earbud stuck in her ear, and she called the paramedics out, and she went and she shut her front door, which the paramedic then said that she had locked it, him in basically, and the police were called, and she was in prison for 6 months.
For kidnapping, wasn't it?
Sorry, yes, that's right.
Yeah.
That's what they charged her with.
Yeah.
But basically, she did 6 months without a trial. They put her on a video link inside the court. She noticed that her solicitor at the time, who was Digby, from Nottinghamshire, wasn't in court. She pleaded not guilty, and then when it went back to court, they said, "Well, you've pleaded not, you've pleaded guilty, and basically the 6 months that she did, she was let go after." But she said that in one of her videos, she said that they refused to give her food and water. She ended up having to drink toilet water from the toilet to keep hydrated. It got that bad. She had ulcerated legs. They didn't give her any medical attention. She had to order honey and use towels to, with her ulcers, so that they would then heal. And now her solicitor is Johnson Partnership in, I think it's Leeds, I believe it is.
It is.
And they're not doing very much for her, and it's her third stint in prison now. They're not doing anything for her at all, to be quite honest with you.
What I fail to understand more than anything is, if it's correct, as I understand it, she is not allowed to talk to anybody.
Well, that's correct. We've got inside information. We've also got other inmates, inside the prison, and they've actually said to, and communicating with people on the outside, basically to get messages back to, our team, that she's been under 24-hour
suicide watch.
Yeah, and she's been in solitary confinement, so she hasn't been allowed out of the cell. And this has been going back now about 18 months. This has been going on for, and they've got her now on, I think it's 3 or 4 charges of arson. One charge has been dropped. They was going to charge her with sexual assault. They dropped that charge. I mean, this whole court case, since about April, May, has just been one great big farce, to be quite honest with you.
One of the witnesses in the arson was a prison warder who was found to be non-reliable. So they dropped him. Also the charge relating.
Yeah, that's correct.
Would it be correct to say that she is a victim of abuse who has been very, very disturbed from that?
Yes.
That she did a few silly things off the back of that, such as holding an ambulance person in a cupboard or whatever, and that she has to an extent brought this upon herself, but she hasn't been given any sympathy at all or empathy for the for the victimization that she received, for the abuse that she received as a child and a teenager, and therefore actually is a symptom of a system in crisis. Would you care to correct me on any of those points, please?
Well, before Melanie was the whistleblower, she held, quite a normal life, to be quite honest with you. So it's only since around 2012 that all this has really started. So she'd never really, she'd had a couple of run-ins, I believe, with the police, but nothing very substantial where she's going to be going to prison for. So
Even the judge said that. Sorry,
so
Sharon.
no, that's okay. So I don't believe really these concocted charges that they've shown no evidence over, that they say that they've got video footage and things like that for, that if they had this footage, it would have been played in court. It would have been played in court for the simple fact was there was a large number of people from the public gallery, that were asking to actually see this footage.
So did I.
And no footage was has ever been
Submitted.
shown or shown. Yeah.
Okay, let's take a few comments and we can carry on from there. Sam Phipps says, need the yellow vests to demo outside the prison. Kazi MC says, just shows you how powerful people misuse it to protect themselves. Okay, now Kazi, I think, knows something about this case. What would you say that he or she is referring to, Sharon?
Sorry, could you repeat what Kathy has said?
Yeah, no, Kazi Mac says, just shows you how powerful people misuse it to protect themselves. Is that what's been going on here?
Well, yes, I would say so. I mean, there's been a number of people that have been in certain jobs. I mean, Paddy Tipping, for instance, Simon Patrick Tipping. He was a Labour MP for one of the constituencies in Nottinghamshire. When he first started out, he was a social worker for Nottinghamshire Council. He then went on to the Catholic Children's Society of the Church of England, and he was working within the Church of England. Then he became a Labour MP, and now he is Chief and Crime Commissioner of Nottinghamshire.
I'm sorry. This chap is called Paddy
Tipping.
Paddy
Simon
Tipping.
Patrick Tipping.
Simon Patrick Tipping, and his position in relation to this case. I'm sorry. Excuse me. If you could tell me that again.
Well, back in the 70s, he was a social worker for Nottinghamshire Council. So, and with the reports that have been going back from the early 1940s, 1950s, and going, they would have known what was going on in these, institutions and these care homes, and what was happening with these children,
and covered it up. We're seeing that more and more. No, so he kind of is another Tony Lloyd, who was the chief constable for Manchester Constabulary, covered up the Pakistani rape gangs for decades, or for a decade or so under his tenure, and is now an MP, parachuted into a nice safe seat. Ironically, Rochdale. It's kind of a similar.
Cowboy.
It sounds. Pardon? Excuse.
The Rochdale Cowboy.
It sounds like a similar situation. Okay, all right. So you're saying that we cannot be sure, can we, that, for example, this guy Paddy Tipping knew what was going on, or can we?
Of course we can.
Well, the thing is, the timeline of events that have gone on over, decades, from him being a social worker to then going on to work in the same kind of thing, the Catholic Children's Society that dealt with abused children, within the Church of England, and then he's become going from that kind of position into being a Labour MP, and then going from a Labour MP to being Chief and Crime Commissioner of Nottinghamshire.
Shooed in, by that terminology, through the back door. Shooed in.
It does all
We've
sound a
also
little
got-
bit Jack Dromey and Harriet Harman, actually. You know, I mean, they had an association with the paedophile information exchange, did they not? Years and years and years ago. They weren't members of Pi, but they were working with Pi. And Harriet Harman ended up as acting Labour leader not so very long ago, no? Before Corbyn. Despite these allegations, it has to be said, there is so much smoke. Just as an aside from the Melanie Shaw specific story, do you have any faith in the IICSA?
No.
Well, no, because there was a lady brought in from, I think it was Australia or New Zealand. Unfortunately, she was another Goddard.
You get about.
So I can't remember her first name, but all I remember was she was a Goddard.
Yes.
And
that's right.
Because of the way that these people were actually going to deal with it, the members of Parliament, the higher up figures, basically, they said, no, this is how we're going to deal with it. You can't mention names and things like that. Then they started buying people off, giving them kind of, in media terms, denotices.
Yes, in other words, the media is not allowed to report on certain cases at government diktat. Carry on, please.
Of course. It's not just media are not allowed to report this. It's the abuse victims that are not allowed to give names of the perpetrators that have done the crimes.
Right.
Sharon, will you do you remember the figures that were given to the victims of Beechwood? Thousands of pounds, wasn't it?
Sorry?
The children in Beach, some of the children that were abused were given compensation or hush money, weren't they?
Yes, they was, and it was very little, to be quite honest with you. Some received £5,000, others received £10,000. But for the kind of abuse that they had been through, and the aftermath of it all, and the effects that it's had on their lives, to be quite honest with you, that is just, that's just pennies, really.
How much of a scandal was Beechwood itself?
I would say that it's pretty high up there.
Top
to be
10.
quite honest with you, if you could compare it to any other crime, it would probably be up there with the craze and things like that.
How many victims do you think there might have been at Beechwood? Hundreds. And of those, how many of those cases are going through the courts now?
There's no cases going through the courts.
They've all been bought off.
Because they've all been paid off to keep silent.
And also the evidence, a lot of evidence has been disappeared. Also, sorry, Sharon, to get involved, to come over you. The point, Samantha Morton, the actress, she was abused in Beechwood.
Yes, she was.
She was in Bad Girls, the tiny little petite blonde girl.
Yes, that's right. Samantha Morton, the actress. Yes, I've heard that. I understand that.
She was abused in there, and she was basically not allowed to say anything. So she just put it behind her and went through and hid it with the acting. Used the acting to try and hide it.
What do you mean? She was bought off with fame?
No, I wouldn't say bought off. No, she chose to use acting as a way to deal with it. She wasn't bought off, no. Okay,
all right. We'll take a few more comments. Lisa Fudgy Fooge says, do no, don't trust any company put out to help others by the government. They are just there to gather information and silence the ones that know too much. Ivan Arden, hey Ivan, over 100 MPs on the sex offenders register, says it all. Yes, as I understand. And in fact, there's a show I'm hoping to do.
Including Tony Blair.
We could just make a bit of an aside here, because perhaps one of the most famous denotices in recent times was over Operation Ore, which I suspect you two know about. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
How do I word it?
As it is.
Well, look, I'll start wording it, and you tell me if I'm wrong. As I understand it, Operation Ore was a huge paedophile investigation by, I'm not sure whether it was the Met or which police force, but
it was the US law enforcement.
It was US law enforcement.
Yes, it was. Operation Ore was. It was a British police operation, and it was from information that was received by the US law enforcement, and it was intended to prosecute thousands of users of website featuring child pornography, which was the UK's biggest ever computer crime investigation, leading to around, I'd say, 8,000 suspects, 5,000 homes.
And it was denoticed by Tony Blair's government.
Yeah.
Well, yes, it was denoticed by his government, because around that time, Tony Blair was actually caught in public toilets. He went to court under a very different name.
Charles Linton. No, this is an allegation, but it's an allegation that we've never really seen. Go on.
It's not an allegation. It's
With
not an
foundation.
allegation, because there are court transcripts.
Was it definitely him, or because Charles Linton are Tony Blair's middle names when he's not going by Miranda, as I understand it?
No.
But they are his middle names. But could it possibly have been a different Charles Linton?
No. Definitely not.
Go on, Sharon. Tell me more, please.
Gosh, have to be very careful with this kind of thing.
Yes.
These kind of people are, high profile, so I don't want them coming in and knocking down my door.
No, absolutely, absolutely. The fact is that there are some.
Careful what you say.
Yes, sure.
Use the word alleged, Sharon. Use the word alleged.
The fact is, there are some very serious allegations, and we do know that Tony Blair, his government, shut down all media coverage of Operation Ore. And the allegation, as I understand it, is that cabinet ministers were named in that inquiry. Am I on the right path there, or do I sound like a conspiratorial?
Gordon Brown.
This is allegedly, but you're saying possibly the then Chancellor of the Exchequer, Gordon Brown, was named.
Yes, and we believe that's why this dodgy deal was done with selling off all the gold and the pensions and things like that.
He was blackmailed, in other words.
Very much so. So all your pension money and people having to work a little bit harder was to go, because of their crimes and, their dishonesty, really.
Okay, now look, for anybody that has joined the show today and they think that we're just talking a lot of conspiratorial nonsense, I want to play a clip which puts a lot of this into perspective. And for many of us is one of the reasons that woke us up, frankly, to the filth that runs this world and how they do it. And it is extraordinarily apt as well, because this is a quote I'm going to play, and a lot of you will have heard this. You already probably know what I'm about to play. Tim Fortescue, who was one of the whips in the office of the whips under Ted Heath's government that took us into the EEC. And as William said, we were taken in without being asked. The referendum was afterwards, yeah. And Tim Fortescue, his job, as the whips are, was to get people to do the bidding of government, to support the government, to support government policy. And as we know, that's the government that took us into the EEC. And this is what Tim Fortescue had to say about MPs' depravity being used to have them support that very government that took us into what is now this EU.
Anyone with any sense who was in trouble would come to the whips and tell them the truth. They'd say, no, I'm in a jam, can you help? It might be debt, it might be scandal involving small boys, or any kind of scandal which a member seemed likely to be mixed up in. They'd come and ask if we could help. And if we could, we did. And we would do everything we can, because we would store up brownie points. That sounds a pretty nasty reason, but it's one of the reasons. Is if we can get a chap out of trouble, then he'll do as we ask forevermore.
So that is a whip in a conservative government that took us into this EU construct, admitting that child rape was used as a means to oil the rails of democracy, if you will, yeah? Absolutely beggars belief, no. And I'm afraid it does. That's the reason why it is worth pursuing these other questions about subsequent politicians that have signed us into these various treaties where we've lost more and more of our sovereignty. It really, really is quite incredible, isn't it? I guess you two know of that quote. Were you aware that Tim Fortescue, at that very time, in that very government, his colleague that he shared a desk with was Kenneth Clarke?
Well,
Had an idea.
there's lots of it that's gone on. It's been going on for years and years, to be quite honest with you. The first big opening of this was going to be made by Jill Dando. Jill Dando was shot at point blank range on her doorstep.
Yes, BBC Crime Watch presenter.
Yes, she had lots of information and that on this, and it was going to go out on air. They had lots of series about it.
Really? Really?
Yes, they did. Yes,
So,
well,
so this is
it's funny,
pre-Savile.
just
This is pre-Savile. This is before Savile died, and subsequently the BBC, who had been covering up Jimmy Savile for decades, they then were forced to consider what was going on because ITV ran a show.
Okay, can I
go on, please, Sharon, please.
David Cameron was managing director of Colton TV back in those days.
Yes.
Look it up.
Yes, he was. That's right.
He was managing director of Colton TV. Now, when Jill Dando was shot dead in three different countries, Iron Mountain, where all the archives of all the solicitors, all the important documents of filming industries and things like that, just miraculously burnt down. The Cook reports. The Gordon Cook. Is it Gordon Cook?
Peter Cook. Roger Cook.
Is it
Roger Cook.
Roger Cook? That's the one. Sorry. You know, he did a great big thing. They brought his files.
Now, Roger Cook, you're talking about fellows here, aren't you? And again, Ken Clark, the allegation being that Ken Clark tried it on or assaulted Ben Fellows. Now, that's an allegation. I don't know the truth of it, frankly, but we do know that there was a court case subsequently about that, which actually, but the point is that Roger Cook, the allegation is that there was evidence that the actual assault on Ben Fellows was filmed and that it was held in the video library at Carlton. And then, was it at Carlton?
Yes.
And didn't one company buy another company, or one television company buy another? Thames bought Carlton, or the other way round, or something. And then they had that footage, and then that footage disappeared. That is the allegation. No, more or less. Sharon?
Yes, I believe it was Colton that brought Thames television. And again, like I say, these files would have been, archived, and things like that would have been archived at Iron Mountain, and Iron Mountain burnt to the ground, and nothing was saved.
Okay, let's take a few more comments here. Thomas White, Kerry, the job that I got booted out of for screaming at the powers that be over corruption and the takeover of our country back then, back them. If I would have known anything about computers, I would have got it all in black and white. But no doubt I would then likely be dead or banged up in some prison, not in the UK. I know a few friends in similar situations who have seen all sorts of stuff regarding leading banks in the city. And they didn't keep the emails and stuff, but they knew what was going on. And enormous, huge household names, and the way they conduct their business, quite incredible. And Harriman Chris Leslie and the missing 10-page dossier. Ask about that. Now, Chris Leslie, he was another TV presenter, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. And he is now a Labour MP in Nottinghamshire.
Is he?
He is indeed. He is under Melanie's constituency, Melanie Shaw. And I believe it's the same Chris Leslie who hundreds of people have been writing to and have not had any response about.
And Lisa Fudgy Foods says, yes, Jill Dando was going to out the pedos. Now, when she was shot, we were told it was by this guy, Barry George, who subsequently was released, having been incarcerated for a few years. A man who, bless him, had learning difficulties, as I understand, and who was a very innocent guy. A nice bloke. But taken advantage of, used as a patsy, apparently. And the question is, what did happen to Jill Dando? We do hear some pretty concerning things, or I have, about Crime Watch, set up by Esther Ranson. Now, I'm not saying that she necessarily knew anything about this, but I understand or have heard that Crime Watch was basically set up as a way to screen victims. And if they then mentioned a person, an abuser who was a VIP, that Crime Watch kind of filtered out the problem. I don't know. Is there any truth in that, William?
Ollie, look who runs it. The BBC. There's your answer.
Why is that okay, now I'm going to assume I know nothing now, which is largely the case anyway. Why would that be the case? Could it not be the case that they just didn't know the deal with Savile and that there weren't any other pedos at the BBC?
Rubbish.
Why?
Rubbish.
Why? So?
Oh, come on. He wasn't the only one involved with the BBC, and they knew it. And so did the people.
There have been other arrests and what have you. There's been Rolf Harris. There's been that guy that used to do the It's a Knockout, and Stuart whatever, and one or two others. The question is, how institutional is it? I think the clip I played of Tim Fortescue there, Heath's whip, just about sums it up. We know all about Cyril Smith. And yes, as I understand it, there are over 100 sex offenders in the House of Commons. Sharon, is that correct?
Yes, it is. Yes, and there was also another lady. Just pushing it forward slightly.
Go on.
Her name, if I'm remembering, was Camilla Batman Halliday. She ran the kids company, which was a children's company. I think she was Iranian born, but she was the executive of this company, basically.
Oh, quite recently. They've received lots and lots of funding.
Yes, they did.
Martin Cox worked for her.
But she took a document to David Cameron before this funding was given over to her. The funding, the company was in lots and lots of trouble in any way, lots and lots of trouble. And the funding that they gave her wouldn't have been enough to make the company survive. It would only been enough to cover, a few of the debts that were already, surrounding the company. And they tried to mislead it like she had done, a great fraud against, this charity, basically. And, she had basically been swept under the carpet, never to be sort of heard of again. And that was down to threats, from the government, and knowing, what they had done to possibly, allegedly Jill Dando.
I tell you what, we are kind of out of time. This is obviously such an enormous subject. Please tell us what is the situation now with Melanie. I understand that there's a court case in Leeds coming up, Sharon.
On the 14th. Go on, Sharon. Go on.
It's on 14th of January, next Tuesday. Is it next Tuesday? No, Monday. It's on a Monday, isn't it?
What's that about?
14th.
Melanie Shaw.
Well, basically, they found her guilty. They found her guilty of a crime that they've, only is hearsay at the moment. They want to section her, basically, and the minimum section under this order is 5 years. They were looking for a hospital bed for her. I mean, they, court terminology, the way how they word things. Oh, she's not very well at the moment. We think that she may need, some hospital treatment. And then she's found guilty of, this alleged crime that there's no evidence for whatsoever, only hearsay. And under the government guidelines of this, she should be serving 5 years.
No, she
in
won't.
a mental institution.
No, she won't. It was actually under the orders of Judge Belcher. She said that under Section 48, it's called a transfer directions order, where Melanie goes to a clinic to be assessed, on her mental state, which the judge advised the barrister, Mohammed Rafiq, that Melanie Shaw will be placed in Leicestershire for a minimum of 12 weeks to be assessed by 2 psychiatrists.
This
also the same judge said on that, this is from the court manager. she told me also that the judge left instructions on paper file, not disc file, paper file, that there will be no custodial sentence passed upon Melanie Shaw whatsoever. Now, I've also recently found out that actually, whilst Melanie Shaw was a resident at this place in Leicestershire, she would have been allowed under a clinician grant, 1983 code of practice. He could have gave her 2 days out of there per week supervised. None of that has come to fruition. This is also going to be discussed in the court next time we're there.
I want to talk more about Melanie Shaw. We have barely scraped the surface. I would ask, please, would you come back after that court case so that we can resume this and discuss a little bit more? Both of you.
Yes, of course. Yes, of course.
Can I just say something, Olly,
Please, William. Yes.
On the 14th of January, we need as many people at Leeds Crown Court, not nasty or vicious or nasty, allowed protest as possible, but no violence or threats whatsoever, please. Free Melanie Shaw. Is that all right, Sharon?
Yes, I think that's perfect, William. That's what we need. We need people, behind her. Really, we need to get her name out there. It's not just her. It's not just her that this is happening to. There's many cases out there at the moment where people are being sectioned under the Mental Health Act because of information that they hold and know about. That then they're being, persecuted by the police, the government, and the powers that be. Yeah. And this is what is happening to them.
The more that stand up, the better. We need a lot of help from from the people of this country.
We need people in numbers. We do need people in numbers. There is another point that we will talk about on your next show is Mohammed Rafiq, and why he is.
This is her barrister, yeah.
Yeah, it's her barrister. Yes, he actually has a number of criminal offences, and he's not registered those offences with the Bar Association, so he shouldn't actually be practicing.
And she didn't. Sharon. I understand from William when he and I spoke on Saturday that Mohammed Rafiq is she never actually wanted him as her counsel. Is that correct?
No, she didn't.
And that sounds a bit what happened to Tommy Robinson, though, where the state decides who is going to be.
That's right.
Looking after your
same court, isn't it? Leeds court.
It's the same court, and Leeds. Whenever I hear Leeds, I think of Jimmy Savile.
Yes.
Just nothing like enough time to even remotely discuss this subject properly. But we will do lots of shows about this. I'm very, very grateful. William got in touch with me last week, and we had a bit of a chat, and he came on Saturday. I'm very, very grateful, Sharon, for you coming on today, and I'm really, really looking forward to hopefully this being a pretty regular event, because this seems to me there is really nothing more important to discuss, actually. I mean, is there?
No. Thank you for allowing us to come on your show.
Oh, no. I'll tell you, the people on this show and the people in the comments make this show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you, Sharon Goddard.
Thank you, William.
William Prentice, God bless you both. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you everybody in the comments, yeah. This has been the Daily Brexit. I'm Olly Connelly, and back tomorrow, 7 o'clock, 7 p.m., 7 till 8. And yeah, okay. Oh, I don't know what's going on with that. Oh, yeah, I don't know. We'll have to look at fake stream and find out. We know they do not want no deal, do they? They don't want no deal. They're going to do everything they can. So I guess that's the big story pertaining to Brexit today. But is anybody surprised? We got to keep fighting. Yeah, we got to keep fighting. Yeah, this is the time when we have to be fighting more than any other, because for crying out loud, if we can't get Brexit now, given what we voted for, well, everything else is going to be so hard to sort out if we don't retain our sovereignty, if we don't get our sovereignty back. As important as all these things are, all of these things, it hinges on us having an accountable elected chamber, yeah? Here's to us. And bugger plutocracy. See you tomorrow.